Thinking and feeling and thinking. Just as thoughts are the language of the brain, feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel create a state of being. A state of being is when your mind and body are working together. So your present state of being is your genuine mind-body connection. Every time you have a thought, in addition to making neurotransmitters, your brain also makes another chemical, a small protein called a neuropeptide, that sends a message to your body activating different hormonal centers. Your body then reacts by having a feeling. The brain notices that the body is having a feeling, so the brain generates another thought matched exactly to that feeling that will produce more of the same chemical messages that allow you to think the way you were just feeling. It's a circle. And that's what we're stuck in. We're stuck in the circle. Our minds are stuck on a hamster wheel. So thinking creates feeling, and then feeling creates thinking that's equal to those feelings. It's a loop, one that for most people can go on for years or for their whole fucking life. And because the brain acts on the body's feelings by generating the same thoughts that will produce the same emotions, it becomes clear that redundant thoughts hardwire your brain into a fixed pattern of neurocircuitry. But what happens in the body? Because feelings are the modus operandi of the body, the emotions you continually feel based on your automatic thinking will condition the body to memorize those emotions that are equal to the unconscious hardwired mind and brain. That means that the conscious mind isn't really in charge. The body has subconsciously been programmed and conditioned in a very real way to become its own mind. Eventually, when this loop of thinking and then feeling and thinking has been operating long enough, our bodies memorize the emotions that our brains have signaled our bodies to feel. The cycle becomes so established and ingrained that it creates a familiar state of being, one based on old information that keeps recycling. Those emotions, which are nothing more than the chemical records of past experiences, are driving our thoughts and are being played out over and over again. As long as this continues, we're living in the past. No wonder it's so hard for us to change our future. And that is where most people are. They're mindless minions. They're brain dead zombies. They're in their routine, and that's how they're going to be for the rest of their lives. Just go to work, wake up, drink coffee, have breakfast, go to work, come home, take a shower, watch TV, go to bed, get up, eat, drink coffee, have breakfast, go to work. And that's what they do for the rest of their life. I mean, that's crazy. Who the fuck is going to live like that? That blows my fucking mind that people do that stupid shit. You want to talk about non-conducive to biological life. That is the epitome of slavery right there. If the neurons are firing the same way, they're triggering the release of the same chemical neurotransmitters and neuropeptides in the brain and body. And then these same chemicals begin to train the body to further remember those emotions by altering it physically once again. The cells and tissues receive these very specific chemical signals at specific receptor sites. Receptor sites are akin to docking stations for chemical messengers. The messengers fit perfectly in place, like a child's puzzle in which certain shapes, like a circle, a triangle, or a square, fit into specific openings. Think of those chemical messengers, which are really molecules of emotion, as carrying barcodes that enable the cell receptors to read the messenger's electromagnetic energy. When the exact match is made, the receptor site prepares itself. The messenger docks, the cell receives the chemical messages, and then the cell creates or alters a protein. The new protein activates the cell's DNA within the nucleus. The DNA opens up and unwinds. The gene is read for that corresponding message from outside the cell, and the cell makes a new protein from its DNA, for example, a particular hormone, and releases it into the body. Now, the body is being trained by the mind. If this process continues for years and years because the same signals outside of the cell are coming from the same level of mind in the brain, because the person is thinking, acting, and feeling the same every day, then it makes sense the same genes will be activated in the same ways, because the body is receiving the same data in from the environment. So we are our environment. If you're surrounding yourself with the same toxic, negative, stuck, zombie-minded, mindless minion people, and you are listening to the same stupid music, and you are eating up all the propaganda on TV from these news stations and these politicians and these celebrities, then you are going to, how is anything ever going to change? You are your environment. You are what you surround yourself with. You are what you're taking in through your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, and your skin. There are no new thoughts ignited, no new choices made, no new behaviors demonstrated, no new experiences embraced, and no new feelings created. And what is going to happen to you is those, after decades and decades of following and worshiping and giving your attention to all that shit in your environment, that environment is now controlling you. So it can tweak a little bit here and there and get you to follow along blindly. So you're just, oh, they said we got to go to war because there's poor people 5,000 miles away from here that don't like us, so we're going to go kill them. And then you'll justify anything because you have to justify it, because otherwise you'll get cognitive dissonance, and we can't deal with cognitive dissonance. There's only two ways to deal with cognitive dissonance, and that is to justify your behaviors and actions and thoughts and feelings, which most people do because that's the slave mind, or they will have to use the faculty of reasoning and think through the issues and think through things and act accordingly, speak accordingly, feel accordingly. Like, instead of going, well, the government said there's poor people that don't like us, we're going to have to go murder them. You go, wait a minute, those people live 5,000 miles away. Our own police kill people every day, innocent people. Our own government, we have the most people in prison in the whole world. Shouldn't we focus, and we have a mass onslaught of illegal immigrants, shouldn't we focus on ourselves? That's your active reasoning. Then you go, wait a minute, okay, so my government's a bunch of fucking liars. They're taking advantage and stealing all my money and to go wage wars all over the world and steal shit from other people. That is your faculty of reason, but most people can't do that. When the same genes are repeatedly activated by the same information from the brain, then the genes keep getting selected over and over again. And just like gears in a car, they start to wear out. The body makes proteins with weaker structures and lesser functions. We get sick and we age, and that's why everybody's so sick. Our society environment and the propaganda has created an extremely toxic, non-conducive life for biological beings. They keep you alive. Most people are on fucking 10 different medications by the time they're 40. They're overweight. They're sick. They're in pain. They don't want to live anymore. They have no reason to live anymore except for their dopamine hits, except for the breads and circuses and their distractions. And so what happens, they age very quickly. By the time they're 60, they're decrepit. They're on 30 different medications, being kept alive by pills, and all they are is just a mindless consumer, because the pills are completely took the rest of their thinking away, completely took the rest of their cognizance away, and they're just completely sold out to the system. They are perfect. That's what the system wants, because they're feeding energy. They live to worship the system and consume. In time, one of two scenarios can occur. The intelligence of the cell membrane, which is consistently receiving the same information, can adapt to the body's needs and demands by modifying its receptor sites so that it can accommodate more of those chemicals. Basically, it creates more docking stations to satisfy the demand. Just as supermarkets open up additional checkout lanes when the lines get too long, if business stays too good, if those same chemicals keep coming, then you'll have to hire more employees and keep more lanes open. Now the body is equal to and has become the mind. In the other scenario, the cell becomes too overwhelmed with the continual bombardment of feelings and emotions on a moment-to-moment basis to allow all the chemical messengers to dock. Because the same chemicals are more or less hanging around outside the cell's docking station doors day in and day out, the cell gets used to those chemicals being there. So only when the brain produces a lot more heightened emotions does the cell become willing to open its doors. Once you increase the intensity of the emotion, the cell is stimulated enough so that the docking station doors open and the cell turns on. In the first scenario, when the cell makes new receptor sites, the body will crave those specific chemicals when the brain doesn't make enough, and consequently our feelings will determine our thinking. Our bodies will control our minds. That's what I mean when I say the body memorizes the emotion. It has become biologically conditioned and altered to be a reflection of the mind. And that is why people who have been miserable their whole lives love misery. They're addicted to misery. They're literally addicted to misery. Until they break that addiction, that habit of being miserable and blaming other people and blaming other things for their own shit and not taking responsibility, and they continue consuming toxins and poisons, and they through their ears, nose, mouth, eyes, skin, and their mind. That's what they're used to. They're addicted to it. They would rather remain in their comfortable slavery than face the uncomfortable unknown and think for themselves. In the second scenario, once the cell is overwhelmed by the bombardment and the receptors become desensitized, then just as a drug addict does, the body will require a greater chemical thrill to turn on the cell. In other words, in order for the body to become stimulated and get its fix, you'll need to get angrier, more worried, guiltier, or more confused than last time. So you might feel the need to start a bit of drama by yelling at your dog for no reason, just to give the body its drug of choice. Or maybe you can't help talking about how much you despise your mother-in-law, just so the body has even more chemicals available with enough strength to arouse the cell. Or you start obsessing about some horrible imagined outcome just so the body can get a rush of adrenal hormones. When the body isn't getting its emotional chemical needs met, it will signal the brain to think more thoughts equal to those emotions, so that it makes more of those chemicals. The body is controlling the mind. That sounds very much like an addiction. So now when I use the term emotional addiction, you'll understand what I mean. Yeah, emotional addiction. And that's why people love it. They love the politics. They love the drama. They love the wallowing in their shit because they are addicted to those emotions. Their body has become so comfortable getting in an outrage or getting depressed or getting whatever emotional state that they're addicted to, they will, and so when their government says we're going to war, they're like, yes, and all fired up for it because they have been living on edge their whole lives. And shit, war is the ultimate. I mean, that's the ultimate experience, to sit in your home and turn on the TV and watch news coverage of wars all day long and get that hit, whatever chemical hit that is, to spark that emotion that you're addicted to. When feelings have become the means of thinking in this manner, or we can't think greater than how we feel, then we're in the program. Let me say that again. When feelings have become the means of thinking in this manner, or we can't think greater than how we feel, then we are in the program. Our thinking is how we feel, and our feelings are how we think. What we experience is like a merger of thoughts and feelings. We're thinking and feeling. Since we're caught in this loop, then our bodies, as the unconscious mind, actually believe they're living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our minds and bodies are one, aligned to a destiny predetermined by our unconscious programs. So to change requires being greater than the body and all its emotional memories, addictions, and unconscious habituations. That is, to no longer be defined by the body as the mind. The repetition of the cycle of thinking and feeling, and then feeling and thinking, is the conditioning process of the body that the conscious mind delivers. Once the body becomes the mind, that's called a habit. A habit is when your body is the mind. 95% of you who are 95% of who you are by the time you're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, skills, emotional reactions, beliefs, perceptions, and attitudes that functions like a subconscious automatic computer program. Yep, exactly right. So 95% of who you are is a subconscious or even an unconscious state of being. And that means your conscious mind's 5% is working against the 95% of what you've memorized subconsciously. You can think positively all you want, but that 5% of your mind that's conscious will feel as if it's swimming upstream against the current of the other 95% of your mind. Your unconscious body chemistry that has been remembering and memorizing whatever negativity you've been harboring for the past 35 years. That's mind and body working in opposition. No wonder you don't get very far when you try to fight that current. That's why I called my last book, What It Takes to Be Your Own Placebo. Here's an example that will pull all of this together. I'm intentionally choosing a negative event because these types of events tend to keep us limited, whereas more successful, empowering, and uplifting events usually help us create a better future. So let's say that you had a horrific past experience with public speaking that scarred you emotionally. Because of that experience, you now fear standing up to talk in front of a group of people. It makes you feel insecure, anxious, and anything but confident. Just thinking about looking out over a meeting room of even 20 people causes your throat to close up, your hands to go cold and clammy, your heart to race, your face and neck to flush, your stomach to twist, and your brain to freeze. All of these reactions come under the jurisdiction of your autonomic nervous system, the nervous system that functions subconsciously below your conscious control. Think of autonomic as automatic. It's the part of the nervous system that regulates digestion, hormones, circulation, body temperature, and so on without your having any conscious control over them. You can't decide to change your heart rate, alter blood flow to your extremities to cool them off, heat up your face and neck, change the metabolic secretions of your digestive enzymes, or shut off millions of nerve cells from firing on command. Try as you might to consciously change any of these functions, you'll probably find that you won't be able to do it. So when your body makes these autonomic physiological changes, it's because you have associated the future thought of standing in front of an audience delivering a presentation with the past emotional memory of your flawed public speaking experience. And when that future thought, idea, or possibility is consistently associated with the past feelings of anxiety, failure, or embarrassment, in time the mind will condition the body to respond automatically to that feeling. This is how we continuously move into familiar states of being. Our thoughts and feelings become one with the past because we can't think greater than how we feel. Now let's take a closer look at how that works inside your brain. The particular event that was embossed and patterned neurologically as a past memory becomes physically wired in your brain just like a footprint. As a consequence, you can retrace your steps and recall the negative public speaking experience as a thought. In order for you to remember it on command, the experience must have had a significant enough emotional charge as well. So you can also emotionally bring to mind all of the feelings related to your foiled attempt to be a successful orator because it seems as though you were chemically altered from the experience. I want to point out that feelings and emotions are the end products of past experiences. When you're caught up in an experience, your senses capture the event and then they relay all of that vital information back to your brain through 5 different sensory pathways. Once all of that new data reaches the brain, mobs of nerve cells organize into fresh networks to reflect the novel external event. The moment those circuits gel, the brain makes a chemical to signal the body and alter its physiology. That chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. Thus, we can remember past events because we can remind ourselves of how they felt. So when your lecture went amiss, all of the information that your 5 senses were picking up in your external environment changed how you were feeling in your inner environment. The information that your senses were processing, the sight of the faces in the audience, the expansiveness of the room, and the bright lights above your head, the echoing sound of the microphone and the deafening silence after your first attempted joke, the immediate rise in the room's temperature the moment you started talking, the smell of your old cologne evaporating from your own perspiration, all changed your inner state of being. In the moment you correlated this unique event in your outer world of the senses with the changes going on in your inner world of thoughts and feelings, you created a memory. You associated a cause with an effect, and your own conditioning process began. So after the self-inflicted torture of that day, which unfortunately ended with no rotten fruits or vegetables being thrown in your direction, you drove home. On the ride, you kept recalling the event over and over again, and to varying degrees every time you reminded yourself, which is exactly that, reproducing the same level of mind of your experience, you produced the same chemical changes in your brain and body. In a sense, you repeatedly reaffirmed the past and continued the conditioning process further. Because your body acts as your unconscious mind, it didn't know the difference between the actual event in your life that created the emotional state and the emotions you created by thought alone when you remembered the event. Your body believed that it was living in the same experience over and over again, even though you were actually alone in the comfort of your car, and the body responded physiologically as though you were indeed reliving that experience in the present time. As you fired and wired the circuits in your brain that were derived from the thoughts related to that experience, you were physically maintaining the synaptic connections, and you were now creating even more lasting connections within those networks. You were creating a long-term memory. Once you arrived home, you told your partner, your friends, and maybe even your mother about the events of that day. As you described the trauma in grievous detail, you were working yourself into an emotional froth. Or as you also relived the emotions of the incident, you chemically conditioned your body to the day's past event. That's what I'm saying. People are addicted to the drama. They love it. They say they want change. They say they don't want to live the way they live. They say they're tired of their life, but they are addicted, completely 100% addicted. You physiologically trained your body to become your personal history, subconsciously, unconsciously, and automatically. In the days that followed, you were moody. People couldn't help noticing this, and every time someone asked you what's wrong, you just couldn't resist. You opportunistically took them up on the invitation to become more addicted to the rush of chemistry from your past. The mood created from that experience was just one long emotional reaction lasting for days. When weeks of feeling the same way every time you remembered the event turned into months, even years, it became a prolonged emotional reaction. It's now not only a part of your temperament, character, and nature, but also your personality. It's who you are. If someone asks you to talk in front of a group again, you automatically cringe, shrink, and become anxious. Your external environment is controlling your internal environment, and you're unable to be greater than it. As you expect the thought that your future, a public speaking opening, will be more like the feeling of your past, unlivable torment, just like magic, your body, as the mind, automatically and subconsciously responds. Try as you might, it seems as if your conscious mind can gain no control over it. In a matter of seconds, a host of conditioned responses from your brain and body's own pharmacy manifest. Profuse sweating, dry mouth, weak knees, nausea, dizziness, shortness of breath, and uncontrollable fatigue, all from a single thought that changes your physiology. Sounds like the placebo to me. You're mind fucking yourself. If you could, you turn down the opportunity to do the talk, saying something like, I am not a public speaker. I am insecure in front of people. I am a bad presenter, or I am too afraid to talk in front of large audiences. Whenever you say I am, what you are declaring is that your mind and body are aligned to a future, or that your thoughts and feelings are one with your destiny. You're reinforcing a memorized state of being. And that's why with this healing, after we recognize and accept things for the way they are, reclaim our authority, face our shit, detach from everything, we are walking and utilizing the faculties of our mind. Our goal, the end goal, is to align our thoughts, our words, and our actions, because we have been hypocrites. We walk around as hypocrites our whole life, sitting there complaining, bitching, moaning, and saying we want better, blaming everybody else, and yet we're poisoning ourselves. We are addicted to the drama. We are addicted to our way of living. We are addicted to this life. If by chance you were then asked why you chose to be defined by your past as well as your own limitation, I'm certain that you would assign meaning to your present state by telling a story equal to your past memories and emotions. You're justifying where you're at. Instead of thinking through it and changing your behaviors accordingly, you're justifying. You're stuck in justification, wallowing in your shit, reaffirming yourself to be that way. You'd probably even embellish it a little. From a biological level, what you'd really be proclaiming is that you were altered physically, chemically, and emotionally from that event several years ago and haven't changed much since then. You've chosen to be defined by your own limitation. In this example, one could say that you're enslaved by your body because it has now become the mind. You're trapped by the conditions in your environment because the experience of people and things at a certain place and time are influencing how you think, act, and feel, and you're lost in time because by living in the past and anticipating the same future, your mind and body are never in the present moment. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to live in the present, consciously aware, moment by moment, every fucking thought that goes through your head, every word that comes out of your mouth, and every action that you take. That's how you get control of yourself. Otherwise, you're a slave to your environment. You're a slave to the powers that be. So in order to change your current state of being, you'd have to be greater than these three elements: your body, your environment, and time. So then, thinking back to the beginning of this chapter where you read that the placebo is created from three elements: conditioning, expectation, and meaning, you can now see that you are your own placebo. Why? Because all three elements come into play in the previous example. First, like a talented animal trainer, you've conditioned your body into a subconscious state of being where mind and body are one. Your thoughts and feelings have merged, and your body has now been programmed to automatically, biologically, and physiologically be the mind by thought alone. And anytime a stimulus from your external environment is presented to you, like an opportunity to teach, you've conditioned your body just as Pavlov conditioned his dogs to subconsciously and automatically respond to the mind of the past experience. Since most of the placebo studies show that a single thought could activate the body's autonomic nervous system and produce significant physiological changes, then you're regulating your internal world by simply associating a thought with an emotion. All of your subconscious autonomic systems are being reinforced neurochemically by the familiar feelings and bodily sensations related to your fear, and your biology perfectly reflects it. Second, if your expectation is that your future will be like your past, then you are not only thinking in the past, but also selecting a known future based only on your past and emotionally embracing that event until your body, as the unconscious mind, believes that it's living in that future in the present moment. All of your attention is on a known, predictable reality, which causes you to limit any new choices, behaviors, experiences, and emotions. You are unconsciously forecasting your future by physiologically clinging to the past. Third, if you assign meaning or conscious intention to an action, the result is amplified. What you're telling yourself on a daily basis, in this case that you're not a good speaker and that public speaking elicits a panic reaction, is what has meaning to you. You've become susceptible to your own auto-suggestions. And if your present knowledge is based on your own conclusions from past experiences, then without any knowledge, you'll always keep creating the outcome that's equal to your mind. Change your meaning and change your intention, and just as the hotel maids in the study from the last chapter did, you change the results. So whether you've been trying to affect positive change to create a new state of being, or you've been running on autopilot and staying stuck in the same old state of being, the truth is that you've always been your own placebo.